Let's start with the basics. We're importing Injectable from Angular core, which allows us to define services that can be injected into different parts of our Angular application. Next, we bring in HttpClient from Angular's HTTP package. This class provides the ability to make web requests. Lastly, we import Observable from RxJS, which we'll use to handle asynchronous data streams in our service. Here we have a decorator that marks our class as a service that's injectable. With the provided in property set to root, our service is registered as a singleton, meaning one instance is shared across the entire application, optimizing resource usage. We define our data service class and a private base URL variable which holds our API endpoint. Inside the constructor, we inject the HTTP client as a private property named HTTP. This allows us to use the HTTP client methods throughout our data service class. The getAll function uses the get method of HTTP client to perform an HTTP GET request. It retrieves all data from the API and returns the result as an observable, allowing components to subscribe and react when the data is retrieved. The getById function takes an ID as a parameter and retrieves a specific item from the API using its ID. It makes a GET request to the URL constructed by appending the ID to the base URL. This response is also returned as an observable. With the create function, we send a new item to the API. Using HTTP client's post method, it makes an HTTP post request, passing the item to be created. The observable that's returned can be used to handle the response or catch any errors during the request. The update function is similar to get, except it takes a second argument, which is the data to update. It uses the put method of HTTP client to make an HTTP put request, updating the existing item with the specified ID on the server. Finally, the delete function takes an ID and removes the corresponding item from the API. The HTTP client's delete method is used here to send an HTTP delete request. Like the other CRUD operations, this function returns an observable. And with that closing brace, we've encapsulated our CRUD operations within the data service class. This service can now be easily injected and used in Angular components to interact with our API endpoint.